Hospital porter's pride and dignity. Stop the new... My hand's disappearing. Oh, it's like the lighthouse keepers in Flannan Island Lighthouse. My hand keeps vanishing. All right. Hospital porter's pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order. Welcome to HPANWO TV. And welcome to this, a watch party for the film The Lighthouse. And speaking of the Flannan Island Lighthouse, that is actually it behind me. You can't see me pointing very well, but that behind me is the Flannan Island Lighthouse, the one I mentioned in my little video I did with Neil Ward at New Year's Day when we went to a lighthouse and we did a little talk. In 1900, this island off a remote area of Western Scotland was the site of a strange mystery that's never been solved. The 4 lighthouse keepers mysteriously vanished. I tell the full story in the actual video I did with Neil, and there'll be a link in the description box to that. Anyway, welcome to this watch party. I haven't done one for a while. This is the first one of 2024. If you don't include the 2 that I've started and never finished. That's Dune and the Doomsday Conspiracy. Yeah. By the way, let me know, have any of you read the Doomsday Conspiracy by Sidney Sheldon? Because I've done an introduction for it. That is actually going to be a read party. Read only, because this book's never been adapted into a film. But do let me know, because if no one reads it, I'll just cancel the read party. Because I can't really continue with it unless at least some of you read the book. So please do let me know. Also, of course, Dune I'm going to do at some point. Film and watch and read. And this is a watch party. It's a watch party for the film of The Lighthouse. Now, this was a popular request. Well, I don't want to say it's a popular request. I think one person requested it. Was it Diego Rivera? I can't remember. Apologies if it wasn't, and it was someone else, and I've forgotten who you were. But so one of you requested The Lighthouse and said it would be a good film that I would like, and we should do a watch party about it. Now, this is going to be very unusual in terms of watch parties, because this is the first time I've done a watch party for a film which I've never seen. I haven't seen this film yet. I will be seeing it, like you who are watching, as part of the review with fresh eyes. So that should make it interesting. It's a little bit interesting. But yeah, this is the before we go any further, I just want to show you some pictures. Now, the pictures I'm going to show you are actually some of the pictures I actually took at the lighthouse at Portland Bill. And it slipped. I was going to add them and I forgot to add them to the New Year video. So this is a bit of catch-up stuff, which I don't like doing very much. It always feels like a bit disappointing, like I messed up with the previous video. Like those pictures I showed you on the Meadows, which I then showed you on the Meadows revisited video, because they didn't come out very well on the original film. But anyway, here we go. These are the films. You should be able to see that. I hope you can. Yes, you should. Now, let me just check. Oh, I'm just oh, there we are. Thumbnails up. So yeah, you should be able to check that. That is the base of the lighthouse, and that is the previous lens and bulb, which used to be at the top of the Portland Bill Lighthouse. They've got a new one up there, LED, which I'll show you in a minute. And this is what I mean when I talk about vertigo. This is just the first step. I mean, at least there are like 2 floors in between on the South Shields Lighthouse, if you remember. There was no floors in between. It's just like a big hollow chamber that goes all the way up to the light. But you know, as you saw, I gritted my teeth and I manned up, and I went up the. You'd be glad to know I went up the ladder. I went up the stairway. It's a rather precarious stairway, but that's from the bottom level looking up. You can see in the bottom right there. That is the old lens, which they got on display there. Right, I don't know exactly what piece of equipment this is. This is on the bottom floor again, and I don't know what that is actually. Yeah, I don't know, but I can't remember what it was. The tour guide told us, the one with a really weird accent, which apparently is from eastern Canada, which is unusual because the film I'm going to discuss is actually filmed and set in eastern Canada. But here you see there's a little bit more of it on top of there, I think you see. And this is on the second level, looking up at the top, and you can see there's like 2 loops of this stairway going all the way up. They have a warning sign saying if you suffer from vertigo, don't try to make this ascent. And this is the top part, just below the light. This is the top floor. And those big ladders, that ladder you can just see there is leading up to the light chamber at the top. And that's looking up towards it. I see the clock on the wall. That's that clock on the wall, which is an old type one. And then there's some old bulbs, these old incandescent bulbs they used to use. And that's before they got LEDs. All the modern ones are like modern LEDs. And that there you can see is that is the light chamber at the top there, you see. And through this little window, which is where the light shines, you get a wonderful view. Although the weather was appalling, so we couldn't see much. But there's an example. That's what I mean when I say there's that's those little pictures you saw of the lighthouse, going up that lighthouse. It's an old lighthouse from. Oh, it's not as old as some of them. I mean, some of them are much older. I mean, I'll be talking about another couple of lighthouses. And while we're on the subject, I don't know if you know this, but I did mention it actually in one of my Rendlesham Forest videos. Orford Ness Lighthouse has gone. That thing that wasn't a UFO has vanished. That lovely old lighthouse on the coast near Rendlesham Forest. It's actually been demolished. I mean, they could have saved it. What they could have done is they could have like built a little defensive walls around it, because I mean that area suffers from very bad coastal erosion. And to be fair, I mean it wouldn't have lasted much longer. Probably it would have probably maybe lasted another 20 years. Then the sea would have just swept it away, because the land under it would have just been washed away by the sea. And so it was gonna collapse anyway. But there was a plan that cost £4 million to save it by building a little concrete island around it, so it wouldn't fall into the sea. But nothing came of that, unfortunately. But part of the lighthouse was preserved. It's been put in a museum. The top bit with the lamp in, that's been put in a museum. So that's good news about the Orford Ness Lighthouse, definitely. Right. So let us begin. So let's start talking about this. The Lighthouse. We're going to talk about this film, The Lighthouse, which I've not seen. It was a 2019 film, directed and produced by someone called Robert Eggers, which is a good name, and his brother wrote the screenplay, Max, which we co-wrote the screenplay. Max Eggers is his brother, and it's been very interesting. It's very interesting because obviously I've deliberately not looked at reviews, like I never do look at reviews or synopses or anything like that to avoid spoilers when I haven't actually seen the film yet. But I am intrigued because this film, it says here, the film has defied categorization in the media. So critics haven't been able to, they're trying to categorize it like a horror movie. Some say it's a horror movie. Some say it's like it's a drama, like a kitchen sink drama. And indeed, the writers were inspired by Harold Pinter, and Tennessee Williams and these sort of kitchen sink drama writers. But it's not actually something you can put into a genre, which I find very interesting. That makes me want to watch it more. Now, what I'm going to do is I'll try and get the DVD of it, because I don't just want to get. I could rent it on a streaming service for a few pounds, but of course, as you know, things can be edited and they can disappear, like Roald Dahl's books and things like that. And or ironically, George Orwell's Road to Wigan Pier has been edited to make it more politically correct. And the James Bond books have all been. I mean, I hate that. I'm not going to rant about it now because I'll go off topic, but I hate that kind of thing. But so I will get the DVD. I could probably get a cheap DVD, maybe a second-hand one, for cheaper than a rental on Amazon or something, Anyway, so yeah, this is interesting. It's inspired by a book by Edgar Allan Poe. And Edgar Allan Poe was a famous writer of what you might call spooky, surreal horror stories. And The Pit and the Pendulum and things like that. That was one of the Black Cat. That was a horrible story. I hated that. And it was called The Lighthouse, and it was unfinished. Poe died before he'd finished it, which is a shame because it's a short story. So I hope this film has an ending. Maybe it won't. Maybe it'll be like Schubert's Unfinished Symphony. You just have to imagine it continuing. Now, Poe wrote the story. He wrote the story inspired by a real event. So this film is inspired by a story that was written about a real event. So I assume then that means that this film essentially is based on a true story. I find that very, very interesting indeed. So yeah, it's about this. I'll show you what the thing is. It's actually about the Smalls Lighthouse. Now the Smalls Lighthouse. I'll show you a picture. I'll show you a couple of pictures of it. It's the kind of lighthouse you expect to find in horror. It's a real lighthouse. It's one you expect to find like in horror movies and spooky stories. It is exactly the kind of story you'd expect to find it. And let me just find it on a map actually. So first I want to show you how remote it is. Lighthouses vary. The one at Portland, of course, it didn't have any accommodation or anything because it was like the accommodation was like because it was near a big town and things like that. I'm just going to try and find you where it is. Right, here it is. Right. Okay. I'll just show you where it is. Oh my goodness me! See, it's pretty remote. Let me just show you. And there is Smalls Lighthouse off the coast of Pembrokeshire. It's actually really close to where Broadhaven, a Little Haven, where the UFOs were. I don't know if there's a connection. It's just there's 2 miles there, so it's like about 10 miles off the coast. But you can see it is on this little island here. Ooh, you see, and I'll show you some photos of it. Look, now this is what when I think of lighthouse and spooky stories from lighthouses, this is what I think of. I think of them like this. I think of them being on a rocky island in the middle of nowhere. Not sort of like in a busy, bustling area like Portland. Although it's quite busy and bustling. I know it's countryside, but there's towns nearby. There's Weymouth and things nearby. This is how a lighthouse should be in a really spooky place, because lighthouses have to be. You can't just put them somewhere it's convenient. You have to put them where they're needed, and where they are needed is constrained by geography. This is the Smalls Lighthouse here, and you see, you can look at you can see by the architecture here. It has very small windows here, and of course it's designed to be very, very. It's designed to be extremely robust. The walls are probably very thick and sturdy because when the storm gets up, see how close it is to the sea level. When a storm gets up, this is going to be pounded by waves. And then you see these windows. I mean, a lighthouse that remote would have accommodation inside for the lighthouse keepers. For some reason, they're known as wickies. I didn't know that. Wickies, as in candle wick, because maybe they used to have candles in them. And there's the light at the top there. See, there's a helicopter pad on the very top. That wouldn't have been there when the lighthouse was built because it's like over 200 years old. But that's been added on the top there because there's nowhere else where a helicopter can land. And look, here's a picture of it. You can see how remote it is. Look, that's probably taken from a boat or something. You see how far? That's how far. And you saw on the map how far away it was from land. So that's the kind of, and the Flannan Islands lighthouse is that mystery happened in one of these like remote island lighthouses. And apparently the Edgar Allan Poe wrote the story because he heard about something that happened at that lighthouse, which is known as the Smalls Lighthouse tragedy. And this happened in 1801, over 223 years ago. Very old. This is very ancient history. But they had 2 lighthouse keepers there in those days. I mean, because of this, they then changed it, and they have to have at least 3. There was actually 4 at Flannan Islands. But there was these 2 lighthouse keepers. They were both called Thomas Howell and Thomas Griffith. Good Welsh names. They were a 2-person team that managed this lighthouse, and they would be there for a while. I mean, sometimes it was several months at a time. And in those days, of course, you couldn't radio home. There's no telephone. You were literally on your own totally. I mean, if someone wanted to speak to you, they'd have to get in a boat and go out there, and they were probably completely isolated. Sometimes the management would turn up in a boat just to see how they were getting on. That would be it. Now, these two guys didn't get on, and they were known to quarrel. And it was a bit, and this was well known, and it was a bit putting those two together in the lighthouse was a bit controversial. What happened was Thomas Griffith died. He just died in an accident, and Thomas Howell was he was afraid that he would be accused of murder. They thought, well, you don't like him, so you obviously killed him when you got the chance. And he thought he thought about disposing of the body in the sea, just throwing it in the sea to be eaten by fish and seagulls, and then then he'd just be disappeared. But of course, he thought if that happened, he'd still be accused of murder. So he was in a bit of a dilemma. If he left the body there, it might look like he'd killed him. If he threw the body away and hid it, and then people might still think he murdered him. So he built a little coffin. He built a makeshift coffin for the corpse, and lashed it to an outside shelf on the lighthouse. But of course, as you see, it's like very exposed. So stiff winds blew the box apart, and the body's arm fell within view of one of the windows. And as the wind was blowing, and the winds would catch the arm, and the arm would would start moving in the wind like that. So, God, it's like a zombie movie. So it made it look like he was beckoning, sort of like Captain Ahab. He beckons us. Spook. That's really creepy, isn't it? Yeah. Thomas Howell continued to operate the lighthouse alone, just waiting for his relief to come through, and however many weeks it was, with the decaying corpse of his partner just in this box outside the lighthouse. And no doubt the seagulls were pecking at it. But honestly, it must have been just bones by the time people found him. There must be nothing left but bones. And eventually someone came along and just check on how he was getting on. And they found that, firstly, they didn't suspect him as murder. They found the body and they didn't suspect him of murder. But Howell himself had gone mad. He'd lost his mind. And they realized that this tragedy, combined with his isolation, had caused him to go crazy. And so the lighthouse management then changed the rules so that they had to have at least 3 people. 3 people had to be in every lighthouse, and that continued until the lighthouses were automated in the mid-20th century. Yeah, that's so it's no wonder there's so many spooky stories and ghost stories and other weird tales set in lighthouses, because of that very, very thing. So anyway, in terms of style, I'm looking forward to seeing this, actually, because it has a very unusual visual style. I mean, this the Eggers brothers employed a director of photography, or the studio, whatever was, employed a director of photography by the name of Jerin Blaschke, who apparently is quite a well-known director of photography. And he decided on a particular style, and the style it was a bit strange, right? Because he insisted on he insisted on it being black and white. Eggers insisted on Lighthouse being shot in black and white, and it had to also they also had to add some special effects to make it look older than it was. So they added some special effects to make it appear rather like he was quite interested in early 20th century, early talkie styles of murder mysteries and dark stories from the early 20th century. I mean, he said one of his inspirations was a German thriller called M. This is a 1931 film, and so he wanted to. And so now the studio wanted to maximize the film's commercial success. So they wanted it like in widescreen color, high def, and stuff like that. Eggers said no. He said he wanted it in black and white with special effects to make it look make it look a little bit grainy and fuzzy, and also a 1.33 to 1 aspect ratio. So this is interesting. As you know, most when you go to the cinema, I mean, I'm sure Gary Robinson will have a lot to say about this. When you go to the cinema, you'll find that films are in widescreen. I mean, and sometimes when they're released onto home video or DVD, or now these days it's more likely to be streaming services. Very often it's cropped, and sometimes it's a bit tricky because like cropped, you have to keep. Sometimes they have to actually pan the frame artificially in editing so you can see everything. There's a scene in the beginning of Gandhi where this happens. On my DVD copy, it actually pans. They have to pan to the other side of the widescreen so you can see what's going on. You can sometimes go and order get the widescreen version. But as I've said before, not some films are not shot like that. Like you remember my roving review of Eyes Wide Shut when I went and watched it down at the Ultimate Picture Palace. I tried. It was actually what we saw was like a TV aspect ratio, rather like my computer monitor. It's roughly I don't know if it's 1.33 to 1, but it's narrower than a widescreen, so it's more like that, like a TV set rather than like that, like a movie theater, screen. And I also said, go and try and find a widescreen version of Eyes Wide Shut. You won't find one because Kubrick shot it in that aspect ratio. And Eggers kind of thought that's what he wanted, because he wanted a narrow aspect ratio because he said it would capture the confined. The confined feeling of being in a lighthouse. And also, he thought he needed to because of the kind of set they had, because they had an interior set, a particular kind of interior set. But then Blaschke and he were joking one day, and he suggested using a 1.19 to 1 aspect ratio, which is even narrower, which you never get nowadays. It was something that used to be done in the early talkies, but now you never get it. And then he watched this thriller M. He rewatched the German thriller M, and he decided that he would. And then Blaschke said to him, "Why don't we do it in 1.19.1, 1.19 to 1? Let's do it. You said it as a joke, but let's try it. It would work." And it would endow the footage with a greater sense of confinement, and says, while amplifying the physical isolation of the characters and their environment. Again, it was because it gave it a particular atmosphere, and he said it would. It was also to do with the studios they were using, because it was filmed at in various places. Hang on, my notes are slightly out of order. But they actually had a set. So they actually hired an airport hangar, Yarmouth Airport in Nova Scotia. This is near Halifax on the remote eastern coast of Canada. It's a very strange place, actually. I've not been there, but I mean, I know that people have a very weird accent. In fact, they go into that a little. They actually went into this in the development. They said that this is in Yarmouth Airport. They hired this hangar rather than using an established studio, which meant that they had to build the set slightly differently. But they also used some sound stages near Halifax, the big city in Nova Scotia. 35 days production schedule, went slightly over because of unforeseen circumstances. And then they also did additional photography in Pinewood, that's over here in England, in Hertfordshire. One of the world's biggest film studios that created things such as Star Wars, and a place in Brooklyn, New York as well. So, so that's an interesting bit of background there. And they wanted to, like I said, so they had this weird, it was in black and white, in this very, very box. Obviously, I'm going to see the film when I watch the film to review it. And it had these very, very intricate textures. They wanted to give it this antique quality, which they added they added post-production, so that it actually looks like an older film than it is. I find that very interesting, So this film premiered at the Cannes Film Festival on May the 19th, 2019. It was released theatrically October the 18th, 2019. Grossed over $18 million, which is not bad, against an $11 million budget. So you can work that out. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good result there. And it had a lot. It seems to be very, very acclaimed here. Very, very acclaimed indeed. I'll talk in a little bit while. I'll talk a little bit about the awards it got. Yeah. So this is quite something. This is quite something. Now the Robert Eggers and Max Eggers, the Eggers brothers, they sort of like were talking about this for a while. Now, I've not seen any of the other. I've not seen any of the other guys' works on this because apparently they have made some other films. There's a film called The Witch, which looks interesting. I've never seen, but they did actually make this film called The Witch as well, which is actually their first commercial success. I mean, I don't know how old. I mean, I Robert Eggers is pretty young. He's sort of got this big beard, which is quite a lot of young guys wear these have these big thick beards these days, don't they? And you can see if you look up a photo of him, you'll see him, and he looks quite. He's got this big thick beard, and I think it's got like the hipster style, isn't it? It's the hipster style. Yeah, and they studied maritime surrealist themes. Then they came across this short story which never finished, The Lighthouse. Yeah, presumably they. I do hope they invented their own ending for this film. In that case, um, now they wanted to get they wanted to, like I said, they wanted to make it look old fashioned, as I said, and they wanted to make the dialogue sound as if it was from an older film. So they started because it was set in this Eastern Canadian lighthouse. They started to examine the local the local language. Now, it's if you have ever been there, I've never been to that part of the world, but of course I'm very interested in the Shag Harbor. That's not what it sounds like. The Shag Harbor UFO incident. And you listen to the witnesses talking. They have this really weird accent. It's sort of like a bit Scottish. They sound slightly Scottish. And they examined various people, such as there's this Sarah Orne Jewett, a novelist best known for her local work set around the coast of Maine and a dialect-heavy writing style, providing the cadence of the lead characters in the film. Because her own characters were like sailors, farmers, fishermen, and the people she'd interviewed for her novels. So they actually used this technique to design their own dialogue. I mean, it's interesting that they do that. I mean, I get a bit frustrated actually when I read historical books or watch historical movies, and it's actually very trendy to do this, and they all do that. You know, almost all modern historical fiction has this nasty habit, which essentially the characters are modern people that are simply transported backwards in time, who talk like modern people and think like modern people. And I don't like that. I don't like that. As readers of the Roswell trilogy will know, the central characters are not modern people. In fact, I modeled their dialogue on contemporary films of the 1940s and 50s, which is when the novel is set. I know it's an alternative history novel, but the people are still going to speak like that. And I mean, you know, the Quilly family, Clane, especially Clane, but to a lesser extent Siobhan, and a lesser still Brendan, they speak like people of that era, and they also have the kind of attitudes that people of that era would have. And as you know, if you read the books, you'll know that some of their opinions are quite politically incorrect. And that's something you almost never get in historical fiction today. Never. And it says here about they don't mention Tennessee Williams. I mean, I've spoken about Tennessee Williams. You know, it came up in my Blackpool video from last year. But they mentioned Samuel Beckett, Harold Pinter, right? Now, Harold Pinter, this you see, I know enough about this film to know that there's only like a couple of there's only a couple of major characters. It's a very small cast. There are two principal characters, and most, if not all, the film is just these two guys. Now, Harold Pinter is very famous for his kitchen sink drama involving a very small number of characters. For example, The Caretaker only has 3 characters. Actually, one of my favourite films, actually, Sleuth, only has 2 characters in it. And it's like literally a two-hander. So you can make a good story with just like 2 characters. You know, even monologues. You know, the other Shirley Valentine, which I mentioned in my BBC talk, that it was adapted from a monologue stage play with Pauline Collins, the actress who plays the main character in the film. It was adapted from a stage play in which where the entire film was told in monologue. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Funnily enough, Harold Pinter actually wrote the screenplays. One of the last things he did before he died of the remake of Sleuth. The one, it also has Michael Caine in it. It has Jude Law playing the younger character, and it's like, I mean, as a standalone movie, I thought that was actually quite good. However, I'm always comparing it to the original because I'm a big fan of the original Sleuth. As a result, I mean, it doesn't match up. I'm not a lover of remakes. It's only very rarely do any of them amount to anything. Yeah, I'll get a green screen. That's a good idea. I'll have to get a green screen. I think I can. Was it Miles calls it? A chroma key. Get a chroma key, Ben. Yeah. So right, what they did was now as I've already explained where the interior shots were filmed. So I'm just going through my notes here, just reviewing, making sure I haven't missed anything. Yeah, so it's an interesting background. I like to go through into the backgrounds in these introductions, whether I've watched the film or not. I've already told you that they actually filmed a lot of it in an aircraft hangar at an airport, a local airport. But they had to get someone to do the exterior shots because some of it is filmed outdoors. And so they went to try and find a lighthouse which was right for this particular film. Sure, if they'd gone everywhere, they could have filmed it. They could have filmed it like at the Welsh lighthouse I just showed you, but they needed one. Obviously, it would have been very expensive to ship the entire production team over to Wales, so they had to find one locally, and they couldn't find a suitable lighthouse in an area where it was sort of practical or affordable to film. So they made one. They built one. They constructed a 70-foot fake lighthouse, an outdoor set, at a place called Leif Erikson Park, Yarmouth County, Nova Scotia, Canada. And I'll just show you a picture of it here. Here we go. I'll just show it you. Here we go. So this is them building. They're building this outdoor set. This is actually all the outdoor scenes of the film were made here. That's good, isn't it? This is not a real lighthouse. This is fake. This is all wood. This is all wooden. It's just a wooden shell. That's good, isn't it? They're very creative, these filmmakers, aren't they? So the music now, the score was composed by someone called Mark Corvin, and he actually produced the score. He also composed the score of The Witch. I've not seen The Witch yet, but you see, I mean, I've chosen theme music for this particular introduction, which I don't know is even appropriate. I managed to find some theme music for this particular watch party. It just sounded nautical. It just sounded like it had a maritime feel. Something. I just put some instruction. Anything to do with the sea, I put into the search engine for the YouTube free music, and it came up with this. So I hope it fits. I won't know until I've watched the movie. I won't know until I've watched the film. So yeah, that's it, I think. Yeah. So what we're going to just one. Oh no, I forgot. I haven't quite finished I haven't quite finished everything yet. Because I've got my list of notes here, which, as usual, are out of order. But if you actually go to the Wikipedia page and just check it out, I mean, I've had a look through the Wikipedia page. I've specifically averted my eyes from the plot, though, the plot's list, because I don't want any spoilers. But when you look for accolades and awards, I mean, it's got more gongs than the Chinese orchestra. Get a load of this. I mean, it's very popular with the critics. Not that means anything to me, but it's very popular with the critics. Academy Awards are nominated for Best Cinematography by Jaron Blaschke. Austin Film Critics, Best Supporting Actor, Willem Dafoe, Best Cinema, and Blaschke nominated for Best Cinematography. Bram Stoker Awards, that's for horror movies, I think. Best Superior Screenplay, that's The Eggers, nominated. BAFTA, Best Cinematography, Blaschke nominated. Cannes Films Festival, Robert Eggers, Best Director, won. He won that one, yes. Chicago Film Critics Association, Best Cinematography, Blaschke nominated. Critics' Choice, Best Supporting Actor, Willem Dafoe nominated, and Blaschke again nominated for that as well, for cinematography. Detroit Film Critics Society, Robert Pattinson nominated. Pattinson, of course, is Robert Pattinson, who's one of the two main characters. He is best known for the vampire movies, you know, what they even call these sort of teeny bop vampire films that all the girls love. Oh, what's it called? Starlight, or whatever it's called. Yeah, Best Actor. He was nominated for Best Actor, and Willem Dafoe got Best Supporting Actor, although it could have easily been switched around. Oh, and the Eggers got nominated for the screenplay as well. Georgia Film Critics Association, again, Best Supporting Actor, Willem Dafoe nominated, and Blaschke got another nomination for cinematography. Best Production Design was also nominated, Craig Lathrop Likely. The Gotham Awards, all right, something to do with Batman, probably. Best Actor, Willem Dafoe nominated. Hollywood Critics Association Awards, January the 9th, 2020. Best Cinematography, Blaschke nominated. Houston Film Critics, Best Supporting Actor, Dafoe nominated. Oh, Best Director, nominated Robert Eggers. And Best Actor, Patterson nominated. Good. See, Independent Spirit Awards, Best Supporting Dafoe. Oh, Willem Dafoe won Best Supporting Male Actor. And Best Editing, Louise Ford nominated. Best Cinematography, Jaron Blaschke won. Oh my goodness me. Talk about always a bridesmaid, never a bride. Finally, Jaron Blaschke won the Best Cinematography Award after all those nominations. Well done, Jaron. You got there in the end. London Film Critics Awards. Robert Pattinson won Best British or Irish Actor of the Year. All right. San Diego Film Critics Society, Best Supporting Actor, Dafoe nominated, and Best Cinematography, Blaschke won again. Yes. You see what I mean? Now he's got two in a row. Nice one. San Francisco Film Critics Circle, Dafoe nominated Best Supporting Actor. Satellite Awards, Best Motion Picture Drama nominated actor, Best Supporting Actor, Dafoe won. Seattle Film Critics, Best Picture nominated, Best Director nominated, Dafoe won Best Supporting Actor, and Blaschke got another nomination for cinematography. The St. Louis Film Critics Association, Best Horror Film nominated. Blaschke got a runner-up. Dafoe got runner-up for Best Supporting Actor. Washington, D.C. Area Film Critics Association, Jaron Blaschke nominated. Best Cinematography. Gran Premio Cinema in Brazil. Now, this is an international award from Brazil. Best International Film, The Lighthouse nominated. Right. No Golden Globes. Right. There was sort of nothing at all from the Golden Globes, but there you are. I mean, that's quite a lot, isn't it? That's quite good going. So, as you know what I've said about critics. You know, oh, well, you've heard me rant about the critics saying, you know, oh God, the critics have this authority. My goodness me, they know so much more than you. You've got to read the reviews before you watch the movie, because otherwise, you know, if they tell you not to like it, then don't like it. And there's this ridiculous phrase, defying the critics, as if the critics have the right to tell you what to think and what to like. No, they don't. So sod the critics. But you know, despite that, though, I mean, that's actually quite that is actually quite a feather in their cap, though, isn't it, having all those awards? There must be something good about this film if so many of them like it. So I'm curious to see it. Yeah. So what I'll do is now, as always, I will as always now, we'll move on to the review stage of the film, which means all of us, including me, have to go away and watch the movie. Then we reconvene in a couple of weeks. I'll leave it for a couple of weeks to give you guys, the viewers, the chance to watch it, including the person who requested this. By the way, please do tell me who you are. I can't remember who you were. The person who requested this film, and I mean, it was already at the back of my head because I thought I should see this film at some point. And then we'll watch it, make notes, and then we'll come back and I'll do a review, and then we'll do the live stream. So it's a full 3-part watch party. So hope that makes you happy. What's coming up? I've got some other ideas for videos. Some people wrote to me and asked, Ben, why haven't you covered the King and his cancer? Well, I have. If you read HPANWO Voice, I've done an article about it. Obviously, I mean, I'm going to wait and see where that goes before we may do a video on it, depending on how what develops from there. There's other current affairs I could cover. So I will be doing another video very soon. I'm not sure what it's going to be about, but I do have plans for videos in the next couple of weeks. So, thank you all of you for watching HPANWO TV. Oh, it's there this time. It hasn't disappeared. Hospital Porters, pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order.